tutorial, we'll take a look at how to begin to create double exposures digitally using Photoshop and many selected pictures. For this assignment, you will take a photograph, 2 photographs of you or someone else to create a total of 2 double exposure images. You'll also want to think about what types of imagery you would like to use within your double exposure portrait. For example, on the right here we have a forest with a deer, and on the left we have some trees that are transformed sideways. Here are a few more examples. Yours can be as diverse as you want, just thinking about how the imagery that you choose to coincide with your traditional portrait, how that works to represent either aspects of you or aspects of whoever you are deciding to depict. So there are some examples, and now we're going to go into Photoshop, and the first part of this project is to create really detailed selections. So you're going to want to take a photograph or find a photograph that is void of a really complex background. So see here, the background is blurred and the colors don't really match really closely the information going on in the foreground or with the subject. I'm going to use a combination of my Magic Wand tool and my Quick Selection tool. I'm going to start with my Magic Wand tool. Sample size, the larger your sample size, the less accurate this will be. I'm going to choose 3x3, tolerance about 50, and then over here I have clicked the box that means that I'm going to add to each selection. So if I don't click that, I'm going to make sure that I want to hold down Shift so that each time I click, Photoshop doesn't delete my selection and make a new one. I'm just going to begin clicking around here, and what the Magic Wand tool does is it selects all of the light hues that's going on in the photograph. If something like this happens, I can go Control Z. If I get really fed up with my selection, I can go Control D and get rid of all of it entirely. So you have some options here. Control Z, I didn't like that. That value must have been too close to one that we find in the background. So this isn't perfect, but it'll do. I'm starting with my Magic Wand tool, and then to refine this, I think it's easier to choose your Quick Selection. I'm going to say Add to Selection or click the plus with the brush. I'm using my bracket keys to make my brush larger so that I can select things quicker. I'm just going to go around here, and I want to subtract from my selection now, so I'm going to click the minus and subtract from my selection. We're going to be using the Refine Edge tool. So for areas like this with the hair, don't worry about it because we will be able to add that a lot less painstakingly than if I made, say, this brush really small and decided to try and add and subtract these spots. Photoshop has something called Refine Edge, and we'll use that in a second. So I'm just, for now, knowing that I'll take care of this later, going to make a selection where there's those ambiguous areas. I'm going to have my dancing, marching ants marching just in the inside of those areas that we're going to bring into question. I like doing that better than outside. So once I have a decent selection, this is okay, I'm going to hit Refine Edge, which is right up here, and this option pops up when you choose a selection method. Say Refine Edge. What I like to do for the view mode is choose Overlay, because that way I can see, like right here, the area that I want to select but isn't selected because it's overlaid in red, and then areas like right here that are selected that I don't want selected. So I can kind of see everything that's going on and how I want to change things. It's up to you though if you want to use any of these other ones. You can feel free to play around with that. For edge detection, I'm going to click Smart Radius. I trust Photoshop for the most part to figure things out, so click Smart Radius. I'm going to bump up my Smart Radius, and if you notice, if I do that, it brings into selection a little bit more of my hair. So already Photoshop is working with us here. I'm going to bump that up. Smooth and Feather, I'm going to leave that alone, and then Shift Edge, I'm going to bump that up too, so I can kind of see what's going on a little bit more. All right, I'm going to leave the output alone for now. That's going to be the last step. But right here, I can click and hold on my refine radius tool and my erase refinements tool. I want to keep this dialog box open. I don't want to push OK yet, but I'm just going to move it off to the side. I'm going to zoom in here. Maybe one more time. And I have my refine radius tool. I can click and move that along the edges of those areas to start to bring them into view. I'm going to drop my radius down just a little bit. I'm going to drop my edge down just a little bit there. See a little bit less noise going on. I'm just going to click and continue to go over these areas. And Photoshop now does its best to kind of get a grasp, a hold of those fine hairs. Makes it a lot easier than doing it manually. Tracing around. Like this. There will be some areas though that Photoshop doesn't always get right. Like if you see up here, we can begin to see the pink color showing through that's saying Photoshop is taking a guess that part of her scalp there is invisible. We don't want that. We don't want to see the pink through that because we know that that's solid. So I'm going to click and hold and then choose Erase Refinements tool. If I do that, Photoshop says, oh, that's part of her head. Okay. So it's just this kind of push and pull. Erase the refinement there. Oops. Come back and refine the edge a little bit. Say, nope, there's hair there. We want that hair to show through, but not on her scalp. This takes a little bit, but it is undoubtedly rewarding to create a really, really awesome selection. Just going to do a couple more changes here. Refine, dropping down my brush just a little bit. Include. All right, once I feel like this is okay, I'm going to go to Output, click Decontaminate Colors, and when I click Decontaminate Colors, it automatically says Output to New Layer with Layer Mask. That's just fine. I'm going to say OK, zoom out and in, take a look at my selection. For the most part, for our purposes now, this looks okay. I have these kind of fringe areas included so that it doesn't look like I just willy-nilly cut, copied, and pasted this. And this ends our tutorial number 1, and tutorial number 2 we'll make a separate document, drag this over, and begin to use blending modes as well as layer masks to create a double exposure.